Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are doing another makeup tutorial. I'm going to show basic bruising and how to kind of age a bruise over time. So what a fresh bruise would look like and then what an older, few-day-old bruise would look like. Now, some things to consider before giving yourself a fake bruise, especially like a fake black eye, is looking at where the hit or the force of impact would have been coming from. This is where a lot of like fake bruising can get really noticeably fake very fast, is because there's no like discernible area where the impact hit. There's no like darkened areas, because usually like if you were to get like punched in the face, say like someone hit you right below the eye, where they hit you, there's usually going to be like busted open skin from the impact. There's going to be immediate like purpley reddish colors around the point of impact, and then as it spreads out it'll get fainter and fainter. So you're not going to get punched like, you know, down here in the orbital bone and then have all this bruising like up in here. You're going to get some bruising there, but it's not going to be as dark as it is in the place of impact. In those places where you do have your bone structure, if you were to get hit in the face, those are going to be some of the first places hit because those are what sticks out on your face. So it is important to consider like maybe there's a little bit of minor cutting, some really super dark areas around in here, and then sort of fading in the eye and then away from the eye. And I'm basically going to be using a lot of just like eyeshadow palettes, a little bit of cream makeup, stuff like that. But this isn't a look or a makeup that you would really need a lot of professional stuff to do. It's pretty simple. It's something that you can really accomplish with just an easy bruise palette or just an eyeshadow palette with some reds, greens, yellows, and blues. And we'll start with a fresher look. So on my right eye, I'll do more of a recently bruised eye, and on my left eye, I'll do kind of an aged, week-old-ish look, just so you can see the difference between something fresh and then something old. So with fresh bruising, you're always going to see heavy reds and blues, sometimes a little bit of purple as well, depending on how much bruising is occurring. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the reds and then build the blues on top of that. So to start, I'm actually going to put a base color on my eye first. I'm just going to sort of darken around the areas where I'm going to be applying the makeup with just a little bit of a darker brown. It's just going to be a matte tone. It's kind of like putting a base layer on if you were doing your eyeshadow. And I'm just going to use this kind of lighter matte brown that I have here to do that. Okay, so as you can see, the little bit of brown on my eye, it just kind of looks like a little bit of shadowing. It's not super noticeable, but this again is just for like a base color, because whenever you do have like an impact from a bruise, there usually is darkness that just occurs to the skin naturally. So we're going ahead and laying that base, that way when we're building more colors on top, we don't have to try to go in later and add some darkness around. So now I'm going to take some of this red cream makeup that I have, and I'm just going to start basing out where I want the main point of impact to be. So I'm going to say, let's think that I got punched kind of in a hit right around here. So right here is where a lot of the dark bruising is going to be, and it's going to fade up into my eye. And right now I'm just sort of placing the makeup around where I want it to be. I'm going to blend it out later on as needed, but I'm just kind of putting it in those areas that I would see just sort of red creeping in, especially in that area of impact. And if like my skin was to get busted, I'd have a little bit of bleeding in here, which would be extra red and irritated. But you always want to do less and build on, because it's much easier to add more than it is to take away. That's very important to keep in mind, because with reds and blues, these darker colors, it can get very out of hand very fast. And I even use this eyeshadow brush that's a little bit rounded and smaller, and I use that to help diffuse the color out and kind of blend it out as well. You can use makeup sponges. I have a lot of these like triangular sponges. You can dip in water and pack it on like that. You can use stipple sponges. I'm going to bring these in a little bit later. But for building the color and for really getting that first initial like day one bruising, I'm going to be using just a brush and packing colors on that way. And I like to use the stipple sponge whenever it's kind of supposed to be an older bruise, couple of days old, because you see that speckling start to happen around the edges, and it's a lot easier to accomplish something like that with the stipple sponge. But I think for right now, I'm going to keep the red where it is. I'm going to add a little bit more later if I feel I need to. But now I'm going to start adding in those darker colors. Now the blue I have in here is a little bit light. I wouldn't necessarily use this for bruising, especially early bruising, because it's usually very dark. But I have the black in here as well. So I'm going to kind of just mix them together. A couple of strokes of the black with a couple of strokes of the blue. And then sort of, you know, you can mix them colors like in your hand, on a palette if you have one. But I just want a darker, deeper blue. and I'm not sure how this is going to look for you guys, but this is sort of a darker blue with that black mixed in. It's like a grayish blue almost, and I'm going to start packing that along in here and kind of outlining where I want my initial injury to be. So I'm going to kind of just try to outline my right up in here, right under my eye in that orbital bone area to kind of show where the majority of the bruising would be. Okay, so it's still very subtle right now, but you can definitely see I'm starting to get more of a swollen look around my eye. So now that I kind of have the basic red kind of laid out where I want it to be, and I've got the blue building up underneath, now I'm going to go in with some purple, and I'm going to really give it that deep bruised look. And I do have this sort of matte purpley brown color in here that I'm going to start with, because this has a good darkness to it, and you can see I've already just done one little coating, and it already is giving it more of a purpley look to it, and it works well with the reds and stuff as well because it's got that warm reddish brown tone to it. And you can see this area in here is where I'm sort of making my impact of whatever hit me in the face, and I'm patting down around where I want the impact to be and then feathering out. Because as you guys probably have noticed with bruises that you've had in the past, you see sort of super dark areas, especially around where the impact occurred, and then it gets fader as it goes out. So I'm just sort of mimicking that, and I think later on I'll put a little bit of a slit right here just so we can have that look of something really hit me and cut my skin. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with how the bruising is looking. You can see I've got kind of an outline right in here of where the impact would have been, and it's sort of fading out as it goes up and around. I could go more outwards with it, but that doesn't always happen depending on how hard the hit was. So I'm going to kind of leave it as is right now, but what I am going to do is add redness kind of in my waterline in here and a little bit more red up in here, because your eye would get really irritated if you were to get hit in the face, and you would see swollen redness in your eyelash line as well. So I'm going to just take a smaller brush and kind of get up in there just to really give my eye that full irritated look. And this is just a little bit more attention to detail that you can give when doing a bruised eye look like this. People sometimes negate that waterline inside their eye, especially if you're not used to putting something like eyeliner in there, but that's something that would definitely have irritation and get red. So you want to make sure that you put a little bit of something on that part of your eye as well. And I even added some up into the top of my eyelid just to kind of give a little bit of red and irritedness to give more of a puffy look to my eyelid, which would occur if you were to get hit in the face. But I think the only other things I want to add for this look is I'm going to darken up right around where I want to have the initial impact. I'm going to pack a little bit of black in there, very, very little, just to have enough to really make it look like it stands out and give it kind of a puffy look. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of fake blood and do a fake slit right through there. And I think I'm going to use my matte black eyeshadow instead of my cream black, just because I have a little bit more control this way, and I don't have to worry so much about doing too much. Okay, so you can see I have those two lines, one here and then one right up in here, and I'm going to put the slit right in between, but having those two lines, it's going to help give us a little bit of depth, especially with how dark those ones are compared to the rest of the face, and this way it'll be a little bit easier to convince people that your eye is swollen whenever it's really not. And now that I have my area picked out where I want to add my little cut, I'm just going to take my red and sort of make a preliminary line, just so I can diffuse that out, make it a little bit more red and irritated, since that's going to be a place where we have broken skin. And I'm going to take some of my coagulated blood here that I have and just take a toothpick and sort of spin some on here, and then just use the line of the toothpick to place it on my eye. And now I'm just taking my finger, my pinky finger, and just sort of pressing onto it just so it doesn't look like a perfect line on my face, and just to diffuse the blood out a little bit, just make it look a little bit more realistic. And now I'm just going to take a little bit more of that purpley brown that I have and just put it a little bit around where that cut is, blend everything together, and then we'll be done with the fresh bruised side. Okay, I think I'll call it quits there, but I kind of blended it out a little bit more with this reddish brown that I have in here. I blended out more around the eye just so you can kind of see what it would look like as it spreads. It gets a little bit lighter, and you do have these like darker areas in here, and to get those I dip it into the shadow, place my brush, sort of press and swirl, and then lightly feather out, and that gets you those like darker areas where you would see bruising happen in different areas depending on how your blood kind of clogs whenever you bruise. Can I help you? Is that funny?
Uh-huh.
People's blood clog differently.
It's clot.
Clot. Whatever. So now we're going to do a more aged bruise around like a week or so old. This is going to be a lot more greens and yellows. After you've had a bruise and the blood starts to break down that have been clotting there, you will start to see sort of this discoloration in the yellows and greens, and that's just your body healing. That's old blood being pushed away. And as the bruise sort of lightens up, it turns more to these brownish, greenish, yellowish tones, then your skin starts to slowly heal, the blood starts to break away, and then eventually the bruise just disappears. But you do see that yellowing, that green, especially around where the point of impact would have been. So we're kind of just do like a reflection of this side, so pretending that I still have the point of impact around right in here. So we're going to see a lot more of the greenish color in here and get yellow and brown as it goes out. Now same thing, I'm going to do a base coat for this eye. And this base coat I'm going to make a little bit darker just because you have a lot more dark brownish areas in older bruising than you do with newer bruising. And we're going to start with the yellow coloring because that's going to be the part that's more overall on the face. I'm going to put some up into my eye, mimicking up in here, have some yellowing up and through this area, all the way around, and then closer into where the point of impact was, but mimicking obviously on this side, and then I'm going to add more greens around where the actual impact was. And since this is showing an aged look, I'm going to bust out my little stipple sponge here, and I'm going to use the yellow in this pan and just sort of stick the sponge on there. It's gonna make like a bunch of little holes essentially, but you want that just speckled pattern to occur because that's how the blood would break down. It wouldn't all break down in one smooth motion. Some areas are gonna clear up faster than others. So once you have some of the yellow on, you just sort of press it around the area of bruising. And the stipple sponge can make the makeup kind of sit on top of your face, so I'll just take like my finger and sort of flatten it out, rub it in, mix it around a little bit once I've placed it, because I don't know how much you can tell from the camera, but you can see there's areas that it looks like just yellow spots on my face versus being blended in a part of my skin. But the good thing about older bruising makeup looks is that you don't have to do too much really, because it's more subtle. It's just about your body healing itself, so you don't need to do super intense layering and build up here. I mean, you can already tell on this side it just looks like I got punched in the face a couple of days ago. It's just a little bit, you can tell it's still a little bit raised, there's a little bit of yellow, the bruising is starting to heal. But now we're just going to add in the green around in this area where we saw the kind of the initial cut, and I might even do a faint red line just to show the healing cut as well. And since where I need to put the green is a little bit more localized, I am going to use just this rounded end of the makeup brush, just because I don't want to stipple just yet. I'll do some more stippling up into my eye, but as of right now, I just want to sort of lay out where the cut would be healing. And it's a little bit lower than it is on this side, but that's okay. But you can see I have that little area outlined. I'm going to put just a faint little red line in there to show the healing cut. But now I'm going to add some of the green up into this part of my eye as well, and even down under in here, just to show how we have some of the irritation coming along through here, just kind of having it healing up around that area as well on the other side. Okay, so there's all the green I'm going to add. This side's much more subtle than this side is because it is aging. You can kind of barely see that there's something wrong. Maybe from afar it wouldn't even look like I have a black eye, but closer up you would be able to see it a little bit more. But aged bruises are more on the subtle side because it is more yellows and greens. That tends to blend into people's skin tones a bit better. But it definitely has that look of aged bruising, a little bit old. You could still add some reds in here if you want. You do see redness throughout bruising, almost throughout the entire stages. Towards the very end, you don't see as much. But the red would be a little bit more localized up in this area. And a good way to do that is with another stipple sponge into that red cream makeup and sort of just gently patting it in there and then diffusing out, because it is an older bruise. You're not going to see as much of that redness, but even that little bit, that looks like healing skin with scars and everything is a little bit more pink. So that pinkish color is great, especially for that mimicking of this side, to kind of show where maybe that's where there was a cut there, like a little bit of bruising. So honestly, I'm just going to keep that like that. I'm not going to add anything else. And I think I'll even keep the red like that as well. But yeah, I really just wanted to sit down and play in some makeup, and bruising is such an easy thing that you can do with pretty much any makeup that you have at home. You really only need red, blue, green, yellow, purple if you have it. Black's also good if you have it, but you know, you can go to the store and get a cheap eyeshadow palette and be able to do basic bruising with that, which is a big reason why I wanted to do this video, just because anyone could probably do this look. But when it comes to bruising, it's all about making sure that you're understanding the anatomy, the age of the bruise. You don't want to have greens, blues, yellows, reds all mixed together, because that doesn't really help you determine. Bigger bruises, people who got into horrible car accidents and stuff like that you do see those colorizations in one big bruise, but that's usually because of how heavy the impact was, and as it spread through the body, the further away from the injury, you're going to go ahead and see parts of the skin healing itself, while closer in, you're going to get those really dark, nasty, purple, black bruises. But in this case, this is just something simple, like maybe someone hit you in the face, bounced your face off of something. Basic bruising just like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. Let me know if there are any other makeup looks you want to see. You can leave a comment down below or head over to my Instagram, What a Horror. I'll be making a post about this video as well. But as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos. I put out new videos every Friday. And until next time, stay spooky.